look at you with all the success, you actually have a big announcement also about this book, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, which
yes.
we're not going to even
Can
have to talk to. I'm going to read the whole book.
I just heard that actually we just made the New York Times bestseller list. Which is kind of incredible after 10 days. But well, I'm not allowed to say where or, you know, any details, but I can tell you that I'm just underneath Stormy Daniels.
And you're not the first.
No, I'm not. Just above her is Sally Field. It's quite a sandwich.
That would be, and Sally could fly above it back in the day.
The flying bun.
The flying.
I got nothing.
You got everything. You are one of the reasons I even wanted to approach doing comedy. You are, and I know everyone here feels the same way about you. I'm sorry, you asked me to do this because you have this amazing skill of just being joyous. There's something joyous about you, even though you're cynical and look at things.
And unpleasant. Underneath.
You're the most joyous, unpleasant person I've ever known. So, what is it you like about me?
How long do I have?
You're not the first man that said that to me.
What? I like about you that you just got married. You got married.
But
and, yeah, it is. And already his wife's not here.
She could be here, she's with another guy.
But you spent your honeymoon in London on stage, which is quite nice.
It was very, very nice, and I performed there, and you were incredible. He is so gracious. He was tweeting out, "Go see Bob, or I'll fuck you up." I think you were saying pretty much.
Words to that effect.
Yeah.
No, I was recommending you because you know they don't know Bob so well as the filthy Bob that we all know and love. They know you possibly from that television show you did for 10 years.
Yeah, I'm still doing. It won't die. I can't do anything about it.
Is it still on?
It is. It's on Netflix, but it's not. It has nothing to do with the longevity of your comedy career. It has nothing to do with the fact that how long have you been in show business? How long? When you started in Cambridge, pretty much, right?
I first did the Edinburgh Festival in 1963, and we were on television for the first time on Edinburgh Festival Special. So that's an awfully long time, it's far too long.
And how many people, who was in it that we would know?
It was just me and Humphrey Barclay, but I was doing a John Cleese sketch.
So John wrote it, but he was not performing it.
John he wasn't there because he was at Cambridge with me, and the show that they did that year in 1963, by God, was called Cambridge Circus. And it was so good, it went to the West End of London and ran for 5 months. And so I was recruited to take the same material up to the Edinburgh Festival, which they couldn't do. And so we had this wonderful show to do, and we were mistaken for being very good. And at the Edinburgh Festival, I met Terry Jones, who was doing the Oxford Review, and Michael Palin, who was also doing the Oxford Review, which of course wasn't very good. Oxford. But I think Cleese and I can very much agree on that. In fact, Cleese and I, we used to do our show together. After the TED Talk, we actually went on the road for about 2 years. So you never know. These things can lead to bigger things. I
do know. Yeah. I read this thing.
Yeah. So we would start off and we'd have a picture of Michael and we'd say, "An evening without Michael Palin." We have a crossed out thing. So that was.
But you like Michael Palin.
Yes. Is it possible not to like Michael Palin? Can we have some water, please, and some gin and tonic, and possibly a bucket?
We need some water.
They promised us. Will you promise water?
I wouldn't mind water.
Yeah. No, I think we'll need it.
I think it's going to be a while.
Because we have to fill the pit.
It's a mosh pit.
It's a shark tank.
At a high school, which is, what would that be? I mean, the orchestra pit is what that would be.
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Now, when you started your biggest venues, what was the thing that your biggest influences were the Goons,
For me, the biggest influence, a life changer, was a show called Beyond the Fringe,
Right.
which was on in it. Exactly.
Thank you
you
very
very much indeed.
You know what? I
Thank
changed
you.
my mind. I don't want water. They had to take the label off.
Yeah.
So
This is like this is very dodgy water. This is
you
wobbly
know, you
water.
shouldn't get
You
my-
can have
mine's-
bubbly water or wobbly water, whichever
no,
you
but
like.
this is deformed water. I don't know about it.
It's been recycled, I think.
I don't think it's water. Thank you, Miss.
Mrs.
Mrs.
Yeah.
Ms.
Beyond
Sir. What? So
Beyond the
your
Fringe
biggest
it was a
influences.
TV show, it was a radio, it was a stage show called Beyond the Fringe. It was a review by 4 guys from Oxford and Cambridge, Peter Cook, Jonathan Miller, Alan Bennett, and Dudley Moore. And it was really, really funny. And it was the first time I'd ever seen people, and they were funny about the Queen and royalty and the army and the war and the police and every form of authority. And I couldn't believe they were allowed to make fun of these people. They made fun of, Peter Cook did an impersonation of the Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan, who was a doddery old twat. And they pretty much brought, and it was the first time I ever realized you were allowed to be funny about anybody. And it changed my life, and I brought the album, and I went home and learned it all. And from then on, that's all I wanted to do.
How old were you then?
2.
You're drinking like a 2-year-old. Would you like a sippy cup?
I would have been 18 or 19. It was before I went up to the university. And
Well, there's pictures in here that people will be blown away. Has anybody read this book yet? It's
Thank you, Dave. I'll give you the money later. All right.
the people that voted for the New York Times bestseller. That's the 3 of them.
don't
Here's a picture of you.
You buy copies.
Oh,
Miss.
yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't because you gave this to me.
Oh, yeah. Well, you don't have the color pictures.
I do.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I got the other one. It says here in chapter 2, the title is "A Scar is Born," and there's a picture of you, and it looks precociously kind of like you do now. You have a glimmer of something is going to happen. Something tricky is going to happen with this
Yes,
person.
and I'm 2.
Exactly.
See? Well, I told you, I just watched Beyond the Fringe.
It says, by an odd coincidence, I was born on my birthday. I mean, that's just, I mean, this is this book. And you have so many wonderful friends that you talk about in it throughout all the years. So people do want to know, probably know already, but how did you come together with the Pythoners? How did that all happen?
Well, it was sort of through Cambridge, really. I was at Cambridge University, and the first person I met was John Cleese, who I was doing a piece of material that he'd written, and he invited me to join the Footlights, which is a comedy club founded in 1883. And
How old were you then?
In 1883, I was -2. And you had to audition to be in it. You had to do a live show, which is a very sensible thing to do, because it weeds out a lot of people who think they're funny, but the audience don't join them. So, and it sort of changed my life, because I spent all the rest of my time at Cambridge doing comedy with very funny people. And then the only way is to learn comedy is by writing it and doing it and trying it. And that's what I did. What was the rest of the question?
Well, do you like Jewish people?
To eat?
Yeah, sure.
You mean all Jewish people, or?
Well, I know the answer to that.
Of course. Yes, of course. Why, you know, I think the only thing wrong with them is God. You know, I think the Jewish people were clever enough to invent God, a single unigod, and then were smart enough to disprove he exists. So that's my take on Judaism.
So you had met Cleese, and what about Michael and?
Well, I met them both at the Edinburgh Festival. And then Graham Chapman was also at Cambridge, except he just left to go to, because he was studying medicine, And he'd left to go down to London to become a fully qualified alcoholic, which is what junior doctors do.
Yeah.
And, but he was a qualified doctor, which came in very handy often on filming.
Did he do surgery?
No.
Just prescribed?
Yeah, no, he could prescribe. When we filmed The Life of Brian, and Graham had cleaned up and was no longer an alcoholic, well, he was an alcoholic, but he was clean, he would do surgery, with 75 people on the unit, he'd do surgery for the crew in the morning, and when he finished filming, in the evening. So it's extraordinary, really.
Which is fitting, because he was an unsuspecting, godlike, mistaken God.
Well, from a Messiah, he was a healer. Yeah.
And that is in here also, that you never thought, none of you ever thought that that movie could get made, considering the subject matter.
We thought it would get made. Actually, we did think it would get made. I mean, EMI bought it immediately. They loved it.
As I said, you knew that movie would get made.
But then the head of EMI, they read it. And they said, you're out of your mind, we're not doing this. And we'd already started building sets, so we had to sue them, and which we did. Although we're not allowed to say who won the lawsuit. Let's just say it wasn't them. I think is that okay, Tom? My lawyer's here this evening monitoring everything I say, you know. I have to do that now, you know. You have to do that nowadays in LA if you're having sex. You know, unprotected sex is without your lawyer being there.
Unless it's with your lawyer. And then if you're on a percentage deal, you said something, and you finished your audiobook on this thing.
Yes, sir.
Which means I don't have to read the whole thing. And you tweeted something a couple weeks ago, and it just made me smile. And it's not the facetious, Eric. You said, I would say the thing I am most grateful for about 49 years of Python is we have only had to attend one memorial. Keep it up, chaps.
Well, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I thought Graham was smartest. If you go first, everybody else is at your funeral, you know. For the rest of us, it's a diminishing return. You know, you have to decide, is it better to have more of them there or nobody and you're last, you know? So we haven't decided. Next year is our 50th anniversary of Monty Python. Well, which we're going to celebrate by doing fuck all.
And you did that amazing thing at the Aspen Comedy Festival that Robert Klein hosted it.
Yes.
And it was in what do you call it? In memory.
In memoriam.
Thank
yes,
you.
It was, okay, are you going to tell it or shall I tell it?
I want you to tell the story.
Well, I mean, we were at the Aspen Comedy Festival, and it was in 1998, and I think Graham had been gone at least 9 years. So we were on stage, and we brought out Graham's ashes, and we put them down on a little table, and Robert Klein was asking us questions about when we got together and all that, and John was being rather, a bit dull. And so Gilliam just leant back and went like that, and the ashes flew all over everywhere. And it was really good. So we all got up and we went like, we were under the table, getting rid of all the ashes. And we brought vacuum cleaners on and brushes, and we milked the laugh for 4 minutes, which is the longest laugh in Python, and certainly the longest laugh Graham ever had. So,
Well, the metaphor is that you swept him under the rug, which is...
But we took him on stage. He was remembered, and with a big laugh, which is nice.
That's important.
It is.
So it doesn't matter if you're dead, if you're getting laughs.
I think that's right. I go with that, yeah. What about you? Royalties and laughs, I think, are both, important.
Were you always a musical performer, comedian, actor? How do you label yourself? An actor, a comedy figure? To me, you should have been knighted. I don't think it's too late. I think you should be.
Well,
I think they agree.
Actually, I was at dinner with Prince Charles, and I was making him laugh. There were a lot of comedians there, but I was making him laugh at this particular moment. And he said, Eric, why don't you become my jester? And I said, why would I want a fucking awful job like that? I did say that. Anyway.
And he, in the book, you talk about how he would find out where you were.
Yeah, he loves comedians. I mean, his big guru was Spike Milligan, who was from the Goons, this wonderful, really wonderful, extraordinary comedian of England who used to write the Goons too. And Charles loved him, adored him. And I know that when Charles was at Cambridge, he was in his college review and stood in a dustbin being kind of silly. So I think when you are in that position where everybody's creeping around you and kissing your ass, comedians are very reassuring, because he would come to dinner at Billy Connolly's castle in Scotland, and it would be Robin Williams and me, and occasionally Eddie Izzard, and who else? Steve Martin, and he'd come.
Anybody of note?
No. No, but comedians only, which was really great, you know.
Which is the best people to be around,
and
really.
we'd rip his ass, and he'd laugh and laugh and laugh. And I think that's so healthy, you know, because that's what I think laughter is good for. It puts you back in touch with reality and the truth.
100%. And we need it more now than ever. And were you always musical? When did you start playing guitar? When did you start writing all these amazing comedy songs I was inspired by you when I was 2, but when I was 17, I was completely pythoned out. I just went crazy over it.
I got it. When Elvis changed our lives when we were 13 or 14, 1957, 14. So Elvis came on, and our lives changed. He just saved our lives. And so I got a guitar, a cheap one, and I learned to play, and I was already in a sort of skiffle group, and I played the harmonica, and we'd play Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee and sort of bitter songs about the South. You know, if you're white, you're all right. If you're brown, stick around. But if you're black, oh brother, get back, get back, get back. We'd play all these songs, you know, which was very interesting to me, because we identified with the South and the repression. It was amazing.
Right.
We were in a boarding school, I have to say that.
Well, as did the Beatles. They were completely influenced by Elvis.
Absolutely. Their route came through the banana boats. They brought all the records into Liverpool. So Liverpool was like the clearinghouse of all this Chuck Berry and all the stuff that they got all these records first.
And I understand from reading, because I can do that, that Elvis was a fan and would sing your stuff.
Elvis, that was extraordinary when I found out that Elvis was a huge Python fan, and he had all our tapes on his plane, and he called everybody Squire after my Nudge Nudge sketch. And that didn't seem right to me. I was thinking it seemed wrong, and then I met Linda Thompson, who was his penultimate girlfriend, and lived with him for about 3 or 4 years. And she said at night in Memphis, Elvis, when the television went off at about 2 in the morning, Elvis would make her sit in bed with him and perform Python sketches. And not just any Python sketches. Hello, Mrs. Thing. Hello, Mrs. Entity. I need a new brain. Now, I made her tell me that 3 times before I believed her. Because it's just to me, that's just mind-boggling. I just love that so much.
I think also Say No More, I believe they would do together?
They would do, nudge, nudge, say no more. Well, he called people Squire from that. Hello, Squire. Good evening. Hello, And that's because when we first came through LA in 1973, we did a show called The Midnight Special, something like that.
That's what it was.
And it was a rock and roll show, and then Terry Jones and I did the Nudge Nudge sketch, and they played it for the next 20 years, so people knew that sketch particularly well.
It's actually, I mean, is that your favorite sketch? Some people? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
4, 5, 6.
I thought it would be like half the room. I liked, did you give her a go? Is that what it is?
Is your wife a goer, eh? Know what I mean? Eh? Know what I mean? Say no more. Know what I mean? Does she go? Eh? Does she? Does she go? Eh? Whoa, eh? Know what I mean? Know what I mean? Say no more.
It's not just the pacing, it's the fact that's a very personal question for a man to ask a stranger.
Yes.
He just
in
meets
a pub.
the person.
Yes. No, he's terrible. He's a terrible, leery bastard. Hey, boy, does she like photographs? Hey, boy, swimming costumes, eh? Know what I mean? Know what I mean, eh? But the giveaway of that is that it's one of the very few sketches of Python that has a punchline. He says, your wife, well, that's quite. I mean, you've done it. You've done it. You've slept with a lady. Yes. What's it like? So that's.
The other thing that not a lot of people did, not a lot of American comedy did, which is you would take something and you would just belabor it until it was just dust. You would do it over and over. You'd bring it back. You'd continue to do it, and it was magical to me. It kind of changed comedy pacing in movies and television that I'd ever seen.
What are you thinking of? Things like The Cheese Shop, or?
Yeah, or A Dead Parrot, or The Cheese Shop for sure.
Repetition's funny, and then, but one
What
of
did you
those.
say?
Repetition is funny, Bob. Repetition?
Yeah, it's funny?
Yeah, it's funny. But
Can I ask you one quick question?
No.
Is repetition funny? See, that to me is something we don't get a lot. Didn't come out of here. It's a British thing that you guys brought.
But it was a Cleese particularly. He and Chapman wrote The Cheese Shop, and I distinctly remember them reading it out at Terry Jones's table. And he starts going on, and he's going, Red Leicester, no sir, Emmental, not today, sir. Caerphilly, no, not as such. And it was just, we're all going, oh yeah, here we go. What's funny about that? And then suddenly Michael started to giggle. And he laughed, and he fell off his chair, laughing, as he got the fact this was never going to end. It was just going to be, no. No. And so the joke in that is the fact that it is relentless, and you're never going to get beyond that point.
That's one of my
favorite.
favorite.
Asking for cheeses. Yeah.
Now, I want to get back to the musical aspect of you, because you have written some of the best comedy songs that have ever been written. And a couple of them are classics that, I believe the title of this book is always Look on the Bright Side of Life. I believe that should be CNN's theme song. Every night after it's over, they should just play that. But when did you start writing voluminous music? Because it had to have just been prolific once you started.
Well, I had the guitar, and so I got better and better at that. And then at Cambridge, in the Footlights, you had to do review, and there was always a tradition that you would do funny songs. And in our year, Bill Oddie wrote really, really funny songs, things like, well, I'm not going to do his songs, but, and so I would try things, and they were usually pretty bad. And then when we did our children's television show, we did some more, some bad songs, but we had the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band with us, who were very, very good, and so they would help us. And so I think it's a skill that comes with being that sort of music, that sort of sketch comedy. There's always a song or two. So I developed it, I think.
Well, I do too, that you did.
I learned all these sneaky jazz chords because I had mono. What's that called in American?
Mono?
Okay.
And
How strange, because I thought it was Bono, but no.
Bono is with you too.
Ah, okay.
But he had
I'm
mono.
with me too. Sorry, I got nothing.
We're all with me too, I think.
Yes, Yes.
But you actually, I mean, you have a guitar right there.
Ah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's right
Very
there.
small guitar.
I mean, it just happens.
You want me to
be
do
there.
something?
I mean, if you have something on your mind that you'd want to.
I have nothing on my mind, but I will do you one. Let's do this. I need to probably check the tuning.
It's very small.
It's a very small guitar, but it's not the size, Bob. It's what you do with it. I'm reliably informed. Not bad. Bad.
I have a
Okay.
tuner on my phone.
All right.
I also have pictures
How's
of
that?
my wife.
Here's a little song, it won't take very long. It's about the world today, and it's something I'd really like to say. Fuck selfies and all those gits who ask for selfies, they just get on my tits. When you're grinning like a lunatic with people you don't know, it takes them half an hour to get their fucking phones to go. And then another fucking other 14 people show selfies are a waste of fucking time. So tell those selfish selfie pricks next time they ask to take their fucking selfie sticks and shove them up their arse. Thank you very much. Thank you. There we go. Thank you. I'm sorry, that's disgusting. But I wrote a song, and I'd like to just try it out, because it's never been done in public, and I want to know if it's funny or not. Would you give it a mind? This may be the last time you see me. This might be the last gig I do. At the end of today, I may just pass away. On the other hand, it might be you. Thank you very much. It was.
When did you write that song?
A couple of weeks ago.
Couple weeks ago.
But it's the first time I've ever done it publicly, so thank you very much. It helps me. Because you don't know that things are funny. You write them like a theory. I think if I do this, that, and the other, there will be laughter at the end of it. But you don't know until you actually do it, do you?
No.
So.
And say no more. When you start the book and you go through it and you realize that a lot of comedy comes from difficulty, and there's a bunch of stuff about your dad in here, and it's I'd love you to share with them just the complication of his life.
Well, he was in the RAF. This is wartime, and he was in the RAF from 1941. And he was a wireless operator, rear gunner on Lancasters and Wellington bombers. And he came through the war, and he was hitchhiking home for Christmas in 1945 and was killed on a lorry, ran off the road, and he was killed and died on Christmas Eve. Which is why I think I wrote "Fuck Christmas." Anyway, but I was 2.5, you know, and we didn't really know our dads because they were away at war all the time. So when I was 7, I was put into a boarding school, and my education was paid for by the RAF, and I was there till I was 19. I was there 12 years. You get less for murder. But what was interesting is that all the other boys at my school, they're only boys, but they were all of them had no fathers either. So if there are any psychiatrists in the audience, one might wonder what kind of effect that would have.
Yeah.
as well as 14-week terms at a bloody boarding school in Wolverhampton, which is not quite the end of the world, but you can see it from there.
So were you the funny kid?
I think I was funny, but I didn't realize it until quite a bit later. But I think funny is a defense mechanism because it's hard to hit you if you're being funny. And so if the guy's laughing, they can't hit you so easily. So it's a coward's defense, really.
Right.
It's the aggressive cowardice.
Rodney Dangerfield used to say as survival that comedy is like you're driving in, you're trying to get out of Nazi Germany, and you do 6 minutes for the border guard, and if it scores, he lets you through.
That's very funny, because Mike Nichols was born in 1930 in Nazi Germany and got out at 8. Yeah, he was on the last boat out. He only survived because his father was Russian and a doctor. So they didn't, you went down the list. You weren't exterminated early. And he got out and came to America. That's how he started in New York. I can't remember whereabouts, but and then it was so traumatic for him. Imagine coming out of Nazi Germany and then coming to New York and going to school. Well, but going to school, but not speaking the language. So he lost all his hair at that point, at 8.
He had alopecia.
Alopecia, gentil alopecia.
I I once knew a girl named Alopecia. She was hairless. I'm just going to keep going till I get a laugh, so it's going to be a long night. This kid show, what was the name of it?
It was called Do Not Adjust Your Set, which is what used to happen in the early days when your television went adrift. And so we were I was asked by Humphrey Barclay to do this children's show for television. And I said, yes, I will write and perform it, but I want Michael Palin and Terry Jones. And we had the most fun. We write it very quickly. We decided we wouldn't talk down to kids. We'd just do what we normally did, as funny and silly and bizarre. We weren't allowed to do rudeness, which is a very good discipline for comedians. And then in the second season, this American guy appeared, this guy came in. And he had a big Afghan coat, all colors. And it was Terry Gilliam. And it was love at first sight. I fell in love with that coat. And then, but what was really funny is he wanted to join us, and he was a sketch artist. He could do beautiful sketches, cartoons. And then Mike and Terry hated him. He said, what do we want an American for in our show? What are you doing? What, are you mad? But luckily I persuaded them. And so suddenly Terry Gilliam joined our show and began to do cartoons, which he'd never done before in his life. He started to cut out things and have an 8mm camera, and he'd be up all night and make them move. And that was the first animation that he did. And so when we all got together with Python, Terry Gilliam came along with us. And that I think, was the making of Python. The animations, I think, provide a framework for the show which makes it look as though everything is something in common, which is entirely illusory, but it gives it that sort of Victorian framework, which I think is gives it immediately visual impact, which most other comedy shows don't have, and it accounts for its success. That, and the fact he was American and knew his audience, and so he brought the two things into our show that are very popular in America: tits and violence. And, so it was kind of naughty. I think Python was very naughty when it was on PBS. People would say, and there were naked ladies in it,
I watched it.
Yeah.
But also it made for amazing segues, his artwork, because you could go, and that's what I loved also, was the stream of consciousness. You'd go from one sketch to something completely unrelated, and that, hence the title, and now for something completely different, which had a different title, I believe, didn't it? Didn't they try to push a different title on you?
Oh, well, that wasn't the title of our show. That was something that BBC Light Entertainment would say on their comedy shows. They'd say, now, for something completely different, a man who sings. And then they would come. So we used that as an ironic link.
And here that was the name of the show.
Here was the name of the movie. We did a movie called And Now for Something Completely Different, which was...
So Monty Python's Flying Circus was the name of the series.
Monty Python's Flying Circus was the name of the show,
Yeah.
the TV show, but then we
Movies
filmed
and
it.
television are different?
Yeah. we
You
filmed
should
it.
have had Rain Man interview you, I think.
Victor Lowndes, who was around the Playboy Club in London, paid for that movie, and it cost 80,000 quid. And, you know, and then that's before we had John Goldstone, who's there, lurking there in the front row, who's produced every single Python film ever since. And there, yeah.
So was it Now for Something Completely Different? Was that, those were vignettes made especially for that film? Or
They
were
were
taken
filmed
they
entirely
They were
from...
not parts of any other...
No, we reshot what were the hits of the first two series.
Now I understand.
And because Victor Lowndes felt it wouldn't go on television in America, but it might well go around the colleges on the film circuit.
Right.
And it ended up, I think Hugh Hefner ended up owning it, didn't he? So anyway, it wasn't very good. We didn't direct it. We didn't have final cut. And we were, I think, fairly disappointed in it. And so when we did our second film, we determined that we would do it ourselves. We'd finance it ourselves independently. And the two Terrys would direct. Anybody called Terry could direct our films.
And that was Holy Grail.
That was the Holy Grail, yeah.
Which is a life-changing movie and one of the best comedies ever made. And it cost very little, I understand.
It cost $400,000. That was the budget.
That's why you didn't have horses?
That's why, well, no. When we wrote the film, it wasn't always Arthurian. It had about 20% Arthur. And one of the jokes that Mike and Terry had written was the coconut gag. So you hear, and then up comes a knight and you can see him, and then behind him comes a little man clicking coconuts, which is a radio gag. That's how you made coconuts on radio.
Absolutely.
So once we had that gag, when we decided to make it all Arthurian, we thought, well, that's great. We don't have to rent any horses. Better yet, we don't have to ride the bloody things, you know. They're dreadful upstage as horses. And it went very useful because then finally, when I got to do Spamalot, we didn't have to have horses on stage either, you know. So that was useful.
And in the book, you do talk about that it was a living hell to make that film.
It was uncomfortable. Yes, it was tough because we only had 5 weeks to film it, and we were up in Scotland, and it was May, and it was very wet and soggy, and you could only tell what time of day it was by how far the damp had got up your tights. You know, we had woolen armor tights, and so and there was a lot of mud, crawling around in the mud, and so it was, you know, it was uncomfortable, put it that way. And I think that's one of the things that makes it funny.
Yeah.
I think being uncomfortable and not having enough money are two very good things for comedy. I mean, I really do. I know.
Well, having a cart being pushed, bring out your dead, and then I'm not quite dead yet.
Right.
Is, I think, part of our vernacular.
There's so many. When I moved to America in, I think, '94, I was amazed to discover that everybody in America knew that film. Mm-hmm. And not only knew it, they could quote huge chunks of it. You know, I fart in your general direction. Your mother was a hamster. People just know that stuff. And I found that kind of extraordinary and amazing and worth exploiting. Because really, I'm the Jewish member of Python. That's what I always say, you know. They're not very good at business, I'm afraid. I have to say that.
The other thing is, what I know about you and what I think you're humble about is you really are the glue of the group. I mean, you've kept this 50 years going. I mean, when people didn't want to attend, when they didn't want to be part, you've had some giant resurgences where you played the Hollywood Bowl, where you did the O2 in London. Those are giant things, and it's really, I mean, it was really you that pulled all this together, isn't it?
Well, I think that's because I moved to America. I mean, that's really the reason. I moved to America and I saw how popular Python was, and particularly on the new internet. Because I got a computer in 1990, and I was amazed that there were two kinds of fans on the internet. One was Rolling Stones fans, and the other were Python fans, who were all nerds who just knew all this stuff. And Spam is named after our sketch, which is it's really rather fabulous, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of, so I founded this thing called Pythonline, which I hoped everybody would write for, and I thought it'd be a very good market, but of course they didn't, because they're kind of lazy. So I'd have to end up doing, it's a bit like Twitter, I'd have to answer questions all day, and they say, you're not Eric Idle. And I say, yes, I am. I say, no, you're not. I say, yes, I am. And they say, no, you're not. I say, well, fuck off then. And they say, oh, you are. Anyway.
So the times that there were many times, and it's all in here, that there were some really golden moments crystallized for all of you in Python. What would you say were a couple of the main highlights? It looked like Life of Brian was something.
Yes, that was nice because we had enough money. For once we had enough money, so we could, and it was in Tunisia, and the weather was nice, and the script was good, and
except for being crucified, it was lovely.
Yes, yeah, we were crucified for 3 days. I'll give you that. We were, yeah, well, we were, yeah. But we had little bicycle seats to perch on, you know. And the only problem with that
was crucifixion.
Otherwise, yeah, well, it was kind of, yeah. Otherwise, but we were up there for 3 days, and, you know, we came down at night, obviously. The thing was there were 34 of us up on crosses and only 3 ladders. So if you wanted to pee, you had to go, over here, quick, I'm really desperate, over here. But I think if that is the biggest complaint you have about being crucified, you are on the whole lucky.
Because Graham was Brian, was he number 1 on the call sheet? Did he get to pee first?
No, it didn't work like that on Python, but it is chilling to go to work and find your name on a cross. Mr. Idle, okay, fine. I get it. And I think it actually was very philosophical. I think it was a very interesting experience to go through that. So I would recommend it for people, I really would.
Maybe it's a solution.
Yeah.
Just go back to the roots.
Yeah. The other time that was very good was the Hollywood Bowl here. It was really nice.
What year was that?
I think that was 1980. And we were about 4 nights at the Hollywood Bowl. And we were very happy, and we got on very well, and there was this just wonderful place. I mean, we would do it, I think the crowds were great. I think I did the Bruce's song. I say, it's a typical bloody Hollywood audience. All the kids are on drugs, and all the adults are on roller skates, which was true at the time. There was this, you know, but we had a really nice time. Vicar, honest.
And
I proposed to my wife after it.
And that would be the lovely Tanya.
That would be the lovely Tanya, and luckily she said yes. Or luckily for me, anyway.
Well, wow, in this thing, you just fall head over heels immediately and say, I'm never going to leave your side. It sounds a little stalky. But you fell in love.
She was asking for it. She'd asked me to dance. I mean, be fair. She was fucking asking for it, you know what I mean? No, but it was at Dan Aykroyd's loft, and it was after Saturday Night Live, and I had actually come off the beach in Barbados that very morning. So I had very long hair, and I was rather tanned and, you know, very attractive for my age. And I did actually, she asked me to dance, and after 2 minutes, I can't tell you why, you could say pheromones, which is all sorts of things, but I just knew I never wanted to leave her alone. And I mustn't let this woman go. And I said to her, I'm never going to leave you. And she said, yeah, right. And so from that night onwards, we've been together 41 years. From that very night. Yeah. So.
Did you give her a go?
Well, it was the 70s.
Say no more.
It was the 70s, you know, and it was Saturday Night Live.
Well, that's in here too, and that's obviously for me, when comedy and the rock star, the Rolling Stone, and the comedy nerds all meld together. But you were hanging out with some of the greatest music artists. One of your best friends, of course, was George Harrison. And maybe tell us a little bit about your relationship.
Well, in almost every case, they sought us out. I mean, rock and rollers, because we're of their generation. And so whilst they'd been 16 and gone to Hamburg and become rock and rollers, we'd gone to college and university and finally done our thing. But we are still part of the same generation. And so often they'd come and find me out and the other guys. And our first movie is paid for by Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Jethro Tull, Genesis, I forget all of them. But they were all paid, that was paid for by the rock and roll people. And they didn't want their money back. You know, they just wanted us to be able to do our thing. But I met George here at on Sunset. It was about 1975. And we had a screening of The Holy Grail. And I was at the back of the screening room at the Directors Guild, old Directors Guild, with Terry Gilliam, and this guy tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I've been looking for you." It was George, you know. He said, "Come on, let's go and smoke a reefer up in the projection booth." So we did, and then he was just enchanting, and we talked like I've never had that relationship with a guy before. We talked for 24 hours. And he just wanted to know everything about Python. He would say things like, "What's John like?" And I would say, "What's your John like?" You know? And then he'd tell me things about the Beatles, you know, backstage things and what they went through. And I would tell him about things about the Pythons. And it was just this glomming together. And afterwards, I think we both played the same role in our groups, respectively. You know, he was because I remember once I was in Tunisia filming The Life of Brian, and I was having a bit of a moan. He said, "How's it going?" I said, "Well, it's hard to get on screen sometimes with Michael Palin and Terry and John Cleese." And he said, "Imagine what it was like trying to find studio time with Lennon and McCartney." So I said, "Fair enough. Okay, I got it, yeah. I'll shut up now." But he paid for The Life of Brian to be made. He did.
Was that handmade films?
And John Goldstone and I, we came to America because EMI had passed. You know, they didn't want to do it. And we came looking for money. And we went to New York, and then we came to Hollywood. And it was like selling Springtime for Hitler. People said, "You're out of your fucking minds. You know, go away." And we hadn't got the money when I got a call from George. And he said, "I've got the money. We're making it." And he pawned his house and raised $4.5 million to pay for the budget of The Life of Brian. And it was said because he wanted to see the movie. And it's still the most anybody's ever paid for a cinema ticket in history. So, but without him, I don't believe that anybody else would ever have made that film. Without him, I don't believe it would have been made.
It definitely couldn't get made now. I don't think you'd have was there picketing? Did people object?
Yes, there was objections. On the first night, 1,000 rabbis came out in New York. Then they went, "Oh, sorry, wrong thing." And they went back because then at Warner Brothers, they had people picketing outside the studio saying Warner Brothers are the agents of the devil. And everybody knows that's CAA. And we didn't have to come and promote it because it was being banned and boycotted and pulled off the air and people were protesting. And so we were on the news every night. So we didn't have to do any of that promotion bullshit, you know, which was a bit disappointing. Tanya and I had tickets on Concorde. We were really looking forward to it, weren't we?
And you said in the book that Bob Daly and Terry Semmel, who were Warner Brothers, were incredibly supportive through the whole thing.
Very, very supportive and very brave. They took a big punt on it. I think they were responsible, right, John? Am I right? So, yeah, and I think I think that was also almost as brave as paying for it. But it was an extraordinary experience. I mean, everywhere, it was banned in a lot of places in England. I think Sweden advertised it as the film banned in Norway. And people would just get in their cars and drive to the next state in America, which was great, because you can't stop Americans seeing what they want to do. It's really great things about America. It's very impressive about it, because you actually have freedom of speech enshrined in your Constitution, and that's the most important thing you have, I think. It's the beginning and end of everything. I really do. And what you don't really tend not to know is that no other country has that. You know, in England, the idea you have freedom of speech, bugger off, lad, go away, shut up. You know, we don't have that. You can't argue, or you don't have any rights to say things. You're just tolerated until they've had enough of you. So, and I think that's true of all countries. I don't know of any other country that has freedom of speech enshrined in its constitution. You know?
Well, we'll see if they can white that out. You're a citizen of 3 countries?
No. No. I am a taxpayer in 3 countries, and I can vote in none of them.
Well, how can you be a taxpayer if you're not a citizen?
Well, of course you earn, because you earn here.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Shall I read you this bit? Can I do that?
Please.
God. I pay taxes in 3 countries, and I can vote in none of them. I wasn't even allowed to vote against Brexit. The Russians had more say than I did. And of course, I can't vote in the States, although they coined the phrase, no taxation without representation. I was once coming home through LAX when a steely-eyed immigration officer peered suspiciously at me. How long have you been a green card holder? Oh, I've had it for ages, I said. More than 20 years. Then why aren't you an American? And I hesitated. What should I say? What was the correct thing to say? Because, sir, I am an Englishman. Born and raised in England under the bombs of Hitler. A member of one of its most prestigious universities from a college founded in 1347. A man who watched England win the World Cup at Wembley in 1966. An Englishman, a proud Elizabethan, heir to the traditions of Shakespeare, Chaucer, Wilde, Wordsworth, Coleridge and Dickens. A cricket-loving survivor of the 60s. And a member of one of the most admired comedy groups in the world. Now you wish me to put my hand on my heart and pledge allegiance to a self-righteous, lying, tax-avoiding moron? And his racist, gay-bashing, environmentally dangerous, greedy bastard, science-denying cronies who reject evolution and the rights of women and plunder the planet for profit to please their powerful funders, stealing the very air and clean water of their children while tweeting insanely and lying through their teeth on propaganda TV channels that would have shamed Joseph Goebbels? No, sir. The French do not shrug at me sardonically and ask me why I'm not French. The Norwegians do not stop me on their shores and insist I wear thick network and a large red anorak and retire into the countryside suffering from Ibsen and ennui. The Australians don't force me into baggy swim pants to stand on planks in orange sunscreen, hurtling across their shark-infested waters, singing Advance Australia Fair. No, sir. Enough, sir. I am a taxpayer, a member of your academy, a Grammy winner, a Tony winner, a father of an American, a lover of America, married to an American wife with an American child, but not, sir, an American. Did I say any of that? Good question, I replied.
Wow. So many movies happened after. You have Meaning of Life, which is an important film to me.
Good. Yeah.
How was that as an experience?
Well, it was odd. It was after The Life of Brian, and our manager, a crook called Dennis O'Brien, who managed George and managed to steal $30 million off George, he said to John Cleese, if you make another film, you'll never have to work again. And those are the words that John loves to hear. Of course, he's still working, but then he has a lot of wives. But we wrote sketches, but we didn't know what it was about. We couldn't find a theme. And we went off to Jamaica for a 2-week writing, and it was going really badly. We still couldn't, it was about World War III, sponsored by advertising. It was about an expedition to the Hindu Kush. There were very many little, very funny bits, but no theme for a movie. And at breakfast, I came down one morning towards the end and said, I think this could be about the meaning of life. And everybody said, yes, that's it, that'll do. So we kept, we rewrote everything and we repurposed it, and it became The Meaning of Life, which is nearly a good film, I think. I think it's got lots of great stuff in it.
Well,
but it is only a sketch film. So
right.
When I try to, work on it for Broadway, it's impossible because there are no common characters, there's no plot, there's no through line. And I thought at the time that if only we'd done one more rewrite, it could have been like the 7 Ages of Man as well. So you could have had the same person playing the same character, but in all sorts of different periods of time, going back in time. But, that was afterwards.
Well, all of it, everything you've done, whether they have been, incredibly popular or like Yellowbeard, which I enjoyed. I've enjoyed every single thing you've ever done, quite frankly. And things in this book that you go, I didn't care for that, I didn't enjoy that. And then there are things, Terry's movie, Baron Munchausen, is that when you became friendly with Robin?
No, I met Robin in 1980.
So you met him during
I
that.
met him, he'd just done his first film, which was Popeye.
Yep.
No, maybe that wasn't his first film. His first film was Garp or something, I think, World According to Garp.
I think Popeye was the first, then Garp, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, he was doing that in Malta, and he came through London, and he was at the comic strip, and some friends said to us, you've got to see this guy. And so I went to see him, and it was a raucous evening, and he just came and tamed this drunken crowd, and he just killed. I mean, I've never seen anybody like that on stage. He was just extraordinary. And then we went out and had dinner, and we became good friends, and I would follow him around this town to very smaller and smaller comedy clubs where he would improvise all night. Kept awake only by enormous quantities of Peruvian marching powder. It was those days. But he was just a wonderful friend. I mean, he was just terrific.
He was, and it's interesting, no matter where you bring his name up in the world, people are sad because it's a huge loss. And what we don't want to lose are funny people. What we want to lose are people that just aren't funny. And you say in here the losses of Graham and Robin and Gary Shandling, and those are the biggest voids I feel.
And Carrie Fisher and Mike Nichols.
Yeah.
I mean, we lost a lot just before this man came in. I think people knew something. I think we can skip the next 4 years. Let's go. But Gary Shandling I loved. He was really funny. You knew him very well. And
he used to say, I met Gary and I met Robin in 1978, and I was on stage with him a couple times, and that's something you don't want to do.
No.
Because no matter where you are, he looks good. Hello. And I would just dry hump him to try to upstage him, and then I'd run away. But Gary had a joke. He said one of his first jokes was, I think my dog is sick because his penis tastes bitter. I mean, the value of a comedy mind.
He was a brilliant comedy mind. I interviewed him. I did a sequel to The Ruttles, which The Ruttles was called All You Need Is Cash, and I made a film called Can't Buy Me Lunch. Well, I went around as my interviewer, and I'd interview people like Tom Hanks about the effect of the Ruttles on their lives, and they'd lie through their teeth. And Hanks actually cried at the thought of when the Ruttles broke up. He just cheered up. It was really great. But I interviewed Gary Shandling, and I said, what did you think of the movie A Hard Day's Rut? And he said, A Hard Day's Rut? I loved A Hard Day's Rut. I loved A Hard Day's Rut. The train came in, and they were on the train, and it came in, and then the Nazis came, but I'm having a little difficulty confusing A Hard Day's Rut with Schindler's List. It was so great.
A Hard Day's Rut was in black and white also?
It was a black and white
That's
parody.
the reason.
Yeah. Well, quite probably, yes. And the train.
Yeah. And they were lengthy. I want to read something quickly from here, if I could, because no matter what you may say in your self-effacing way, people throw the word legend around and icon around. They do. But you are a legend. You are. And I'm sorry.
I used to say a legend is something dead and untrue.
Well, this is something you wrote, and it's on page 265 of the book, and it's just one page, and it's called The Diary of a Legend. And I'm just going to read it quickly. Monday, got up, was a legend, had breakfast, went back to bed. Tuesday, got up, still a legend, fed dog, went back to bed. Wednesday, exhausted from being a legend, stayed in bed. Thursday, wife said you're not a legend, you're just a lazy old bastard. Friday, decided to look for a new wife. Saturday, remember John Cleese, changed mind about looking for new wife. Cheaper to stay with the old one. Sunday, tired of being a legend, it's exhausting. I looked in the bathroom mirror and it appears fame has gone to my ass. Monday, somebody in the pub said you're not a legend, you're not even funny anymore, so piss off back to America. Tuesday, pissed off back to America, they sent me back. Wednesday, have decided to stop writing a diary about being a legend as I'm becoming the sort of person I would normally try to avoid. I have decided instead to become a national treasure. This is the last one. Thursday, they said, fuck off. We have far too many national treasures. In fact, the UK is now National Treasure Island.
Thank you. Very nicely read. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh.
Only a legend knows this, what you have written. It's really amazing, your body of work. You do have a really good physique for
an old fucker.
No, you're not old. That's what's so cool. I mean, you even talk about it in here that I don't see you going anywhere for a long time. You have a lot of important stuff to do.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. We need another 40, 50 years out of him, don't we?
Oh,
well, you'll look great. You're going to look great in 50 years.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah. Yeah.
There's also, I mean, there's so much amazing stuff in here, and it's not name droppery. It's the people you hung with, and you say that it was because you were of the same generation, but the truth is, the Pythoners, all of you were no different than a band in a way, because there was collaboration, there were the same arguments that go on, the same love, family, you talk about it in here. They're my family, they're my friends, we had arguments, no different than a band. So you're in here, you're with David Bowie and Aman, and you're with, I mean, the list goes on and on of people that would do anything to have lived some of the experiences you've lived. You've watched Harry Nilsson drink and drink.
There was some, yes.
Is there
I met some lovely
anything
people.
that stands out amazing to you, some crazy thing that happened with any of the Stones or any of these people that you hung out with?
Well, I did ruin a scene in Star Wars because they were filming an Empire Strikes Back, and Carrie Fisher was rented our house in St. John's Wood to film this film up in Elstree. And they were very depressed, and it was cold, it was miserable, it was winter. They're on this long shoot of an Empire Strikes Back, and Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and Carrie, they were very down. And I said, oh, I've got the very thing for you. I brought back this bottle of Bucha from Tunisia. We'd just been filming The Life of Brian. It's 40% fig alcohol, and it's really strong. And so we had a little drink, and a party broke out. And it did at our house, which sometimes it did. And all of the Rolling Stones turned up. And I, of course, pretended that happened all the time, you know. Hi guys. I think they were recording at Abbey Road, and the party went on till 6 o'clock in the morning when their cars came to pick them up for filming. We all sloped off to bed, and the Stones went home to hang upside down in their caves. And, these actors had to go off to work and film an Empire Strikes Back. And I lost myself.
Yeah, you're back.
And when I finally saw the film and I saw the scene they filmed that morning, I was so proud. Because they're still high. And, I mean, Carrie lurches out of the spacecraft to meet Billy D. Williams, I think his name was, and she goes, hi. And Harrison's clearly pissed still, and I just feel very proud that I ruined a scene. Yeah, you know. And it was, you know, it's an achievement, I think. Not everybody can do that.
I think we have questions from the audience. I think, would you be comfortable answering some of those?
Sure.
All right.
So you want?
Because you'd be
Haven't they had enough already?
If what?
Huh? What?
What did you say?
I said, haven't they had enough already?
Oh no, they want everything. I might want to know who said some of these if they're strange. Okay, here we go. Eric, they got that.
They got that bit right. Yeah.
Which of your Monty Python colleagues would make you laugh the hardest?
That's very difficult. I think Michael was the best improviser of conversation and character. He can just do that stuff. John wrote the funniest stuff with Graham. The sketches themselves, I think, are absolutely brilliant. I mean, something like The Argument Clinic is so... I think it's fantastic, and I think it's as good as Tom Stoppard, which is saying a lot. I think it really is it's just extraordinary fine writing. And John himself is a brilliant performer. I mean, he really is and he's great to work with. I mean, he's just amazing. But in conversation, Mike was the most playful and funniest, I think, of that.
Well, the thing Michael Palin did that I think made me laugh the hardest was in Life of Brian, the whole biggest dickus. Does anyone here want to make fun of my friend, biggest dickus? And was the actor directed to crack up or try to hold it in, or was that sprung on them?
They knew what they were doing because we always rehearsed everything, but the fact is, it was very hard. When somebody tells you not to laugh, that's the hardest thing to do, isn't it?
Right.
It's like laughing in church. I mean, you know, you're not supposed to laugh, but you go. And so that's what they were doing. And actually, Michael is, you know, he's really nice. He's a genuinely pleasant person. And I'm sometimes mistaken for him, you know, in airports and places. And if I am mistaken for Michael Palin, I always say, yes, I am Michael Palin. Now fuck off, you ugly old bastard. Because I like to destroy that reputation.
Here's another one. Aside from the British influences like the Goons, are there any American comedians that influenced you personally or Python in general growing up?
My favorite comedians when I was at Cambridge were Nichols and May. I love their records. They're fantastic. And I liked Shelley Berman, all those songs. There was quite a lot of very good American. And I love Dick Van Dyke.
Of course.
I love Bilko. I thought that was brilliant comedy. Sergeant Bilko. So we would get some of the shows, but not everything. We didn't get The Honeymooners. We didn't get Show of Shows. I think it was kind of random what American shows we got.
Right. Well, I didn't, before I go to the next question, I didn't bring up one of the greatest things that happened in your life, which is, it's really quite beautiful when, you know, we're living a life of rebooting right now in all the arts, television especially. But what you did with Spamalot and what you did, and you got a Tony nomination, which I know is...
We got 13 Tony nominations, and we won 3. Mike Nichols won for Best Director, quite rightly, and Sada Ramirez won for Best Newcomer or something like that. And then at the end of the evening, we actually won the Best Show on Broadway for 2005, which was, you know, that was extraordinary. I mean, you know, we got to go and kiss Hugh Jackman.
Who made the first move? Are his nails that long? I had the good fortune of being directed by Casey Nicholaw in the play The Drowsy Chaperone, and he is one of the, and he choreographed. You had the A-team on Spamalot. You can't get any better than Mike Nichols.
That was his first show.
I know.
Mike Nichols found Casey Nicholaw and got him to do the choreography, and he was just the gem that made it, because he's such a genius, but he's also a very pleasant man and very, and Mike was coming over here a lot to promote Closer. And so we, for example, he and I put together, we put Always Look on the Bright Side in Spamalot, because we felt we needed a lift in Act 2. So, and now I'm happy to say that he will be directing the movie of Spamalot, which is very, yeah.
Casey is.
Casey, yes. Because I think you always should have the choreographer directing when there's dancing. You need to see what's going on, and I think he'll be brilliant. I think he'll do a great job.
He taught me how to dance, and I can barely talk. And he also, of course, directed Book of Mormon, and I mean, he's...
Aladdin. He did Aladdin. He did Mean Girls recently. I mean, he's got so many credits on Broadway that he's
absolutely brilliant and one of the nicest people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I hear someone else saying, Eric, I loved the book. Can you drop a few more names for us tonight?
Well, look, I mean, Lytton Strachey didn't write dull Victorians. He wrote eminent Victorians, because we're interested in people who are celebrities, not just because they're celebrities, but because they're good at what they do. And that's why you write about them, because you could write about Joe Blow in Sunderland, but nobody has heard of them. And
I have.
All right, apart from him. But I think if they haven't made an effort to be famous, they should be left alone. But I do think we are interested in these people. I mean, Bowie was an extraordinary man, and I just happened to meet him as a friend. Bobcat Goldthwait introduced him to me at tea in Hollywood. And what he just liked to laugh all the time. He was a big comedian, and he loved comedy people. And so people don't know that about him. They think of him as a sort of ground control to Major Tom. You know, they think of him as a very serious artist, which he was serious about everything he did, but he was also serious about comedy. And he just loved comedy and comedians. So I was his sort of best man at his wedding to Iman. And it's one of my worst performances in time. I was really low. And Tanya would keep asking him, saying, Eric wants to know how low should he go? And he said, oh, tell him to go as low as he wants. And I did. But
What
we
did
were
you
passed
say?
over. Oh, awful things, awful things.
Sexual things?
Oh, terrible things. I said, you know, being married to Angie is enough to make anybody sleep with Mick.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Oh, yes. Well, you know, there were there were moments.
A wedding is the best time to cockwaddle.
I'm not going to do any more.
Okay.
No, it's sealed in history.
We've kind of touched on this, but it's a nice question. What is your fondest memory of George Harrison?
Well, there was quite a lot of time, and I was very fortunate because I played guitar. I could play with these guys, so it wasn't just that we could hang out. I could also play along. So often we'd just play together. You know, when we were on holiday once playing guitars in St. John or St. Thomas, one of those two in the Virgin Isles, and there was a knock on the door, and this woman came to the door and said, would you please keep quiet? In the afternoon, because who's the producer of All in the Family? Norman Lear. She said, Norman Lear is trying to write comedy downstairs. So George went, all right, love, sorry, love, okay. And then about 4 hours later, there's another knock on the door, and it's Norman Lear.
Yeah.
And he's just found out he's told a Beatle to stop playing guitar.
And he is one of the nicest people.
He is one of the nicest people, and he had the same job as my dad in World War II. He was a rear gunner, wireless operator in Lancasters and Wellingtons, flying from Rome, bombing Berlin and places. It was kind of very nice to meet him and have dinner with him recently. I loved him. He's a wonderful man.
Yeah, I love him too. He's, that's my wife. That's who I married. I married Norman Lear.
Really?
Now it's out.
And the hat doesn't bother you in bed?
No, it's iconic.
Yes, it is.
You know what you're getting.
Yeah.
It's kind of like on Golden Pond, you know? It's kind of like that Henry Fonda look.
Yeah.
I think it's the same hat.
Oh, he wore that hat too.
He takes his hat off for me. Can you tell us what influence Jamaica may have had on creating the meaning of life? This is from Matthew Binns. Where are you, Matthew?
Matthew Binns, that name rings a bell. Did you ever work for Python? Yes. You did? He was on one of our movies, wasn't he? Where is he? Yeah. Yeah. He was, right? What was he on? He was on Brian? And Meaning of Life. Yeah, Meaning of Life. Well done. That's a stupid question. Jamaica.
What was Eric like to deal with?
See, amazing to deal with. Jamaica was interesting, but strange. You know, it was an odd experience. But I don't think there's particularly very funny stories that comes to mind.
But you got to see Matthew.
I got to see, he wasn't there. This was the writing part of the trip, you know.
Oh, I see.
I know what happened. There was a very nice moment when we had left Dennis O'Brien. He was our manager for about 6 months until everybody thought, you know, ugh. And so he owed us $1 million from the Hollywood Bowl movie, and he wasn't paying up. So I suggested, we were in Jamaica, I suggested to the other guys that we went and took his yacht. And I said, you know, he's never going to complain that his group has stolen his yacht. How could he do that? He'd look like a twat. And so they all voted in favor, except John Cleese, who has a law degree, and said, no, it's piracy. So we were 5-6 away from being pirates. You know, I thought it's good for us.
Will you ever revive or perform What About Dick again?
Well, I'd love to. I mean, we did it down here at the Orpheum Theatre, and it was an amazing cast. Eddie Izzard, Billy Connolly, Tracy Ullman, Jane Leaves, Jim Piddock, myself. Who am I missing out? Tim Curry. Yeah, so it was this amazing cast, and it was like a radio play, so we recorded it and filmed it, and we did it 4 nights, and Russell Brand as well. Russell Brand? Yeah, and so it was just the most fun ever, so you could read it. You didn't have to learn it or dress up or dance. And it had music in it, and Billy Connolly got to sing The Lonely Trout, which is one of my favorite songs. Yeah, but we did it, so it's very hard to get that cast together and put them anywhere, even on Broadway. It was too expensive. So I always wondered if it would be funny with other people doing it, but you never know. They can do it if they want to.
You should do it.
Me? I did it.
But you could do it again.
Yeah.
I mean, the question was, will you ever revive or perform?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't solved the financial side of it, because it's fun to see and it's fun to do. But I think it's like a play. People can do it themselves, and occasionally they do.
Right. The other thing that was brought up in the book was that Spamalot, you said this, was really the only time in your career where you really saw real money. Is that okay to share with all these people?
Yeah, of course. No. Python made a certain amount of money, from The Life of Brian did well by our standards, and we eventually owned all of our shows, so we would make money recycling it, but from PBS to somewhere slightly more expensive. But Spamalot, when you get a Broadway hit, it's an extraordinary, box office cow, and we made our money back quite quickly because Steve Wynn bought it for Vegas. And so we were suddenly in profit very, very quickly.
He never saw it because he can't see.
And it ran 16 months at the Wynn. He did, it wasn't very, it was,
It ran all over the world as well.
It's been played to 25 million people worldwide, Spamalot. Yeah. So, yeah, lucky really.
It's exciting. And
I think we should let them go. I think it's getting late, isn't it?
There's only 3 more questions.
All right.
Really 12, but I'll do them quick. Of all the Monty, because I'm too verby, of all the Monty Python movies, sketches, or specials, is there one joke, punchline, or tagline that makes you laugh the hardest? What are the origins of that joke?
I think there's only one ad lib in Python that I recall, and that was when we were filming the King Arthur's coming, and we're in the mud, and we're guards, and he says, "Who was that?" And I say, "It was a king." And he says, "How can you tell?" I said, "He hasn't got shit all over him."
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the only ad lib, because Python was really scripted. We were writers, so we didn't ad lib a lot.
That's a hilarious line. In Series 4 of Monty Python's Flying Circus, shortened to Monty Python specifically for 4 series, very clinically written, John had left. Were you, Michael Graham, and the Terrys excited to have more space for your own writing and performing given his absence? How was the decision taken to include some of his writing in Series 4 regardless of his absence?
Well, he announced at the end of we toured Canada, and he announced at the end of our Canadian tour in Vancouver that the BBC had offered us a 4th series, and he didn't want to do it. He wanted to write some stupid sitcom about a hotel. And so he went off to do that, and Graham was rather desperate for money. So we sort of said, all right, well, let's do 6 or 7, which we did. And we had a lot of material which we cut out of the Holy Grail, modern material, which didn't fit into now it was all Arthurian. So we used a lot of that. I think there's like the toupee counter at Harrods, and something about buying an ant, and all sorts of very silly things. And so we had John's writing, and it wasn't so much his performing we missed, but the balance was gone. There's this like series of tensions and balances in a group, and it was like the Beatles without Ringo. I mean, they weren't the Beatles till they had Ringo, And I can't really explain those sort of tensions that make something work, but they're all important. And without him, it didn't work, and they offered us 7 more, and I said no. And then John came back because he was quite happy to work on movies. So he came back and we wrote The Holy Grail. Lucky, really.
This is interesting, I think. Which of your many Monty Python roles do people most associate you with, and how has it changed over the course of your career?
I think they, obviously Nudge is obviously been there a lot, but I think the role I like most is Mr. Cheeky. Since he was based on one of our lighting guys. You know, they were very cheeky, the Cockneys, very happy. They did the lighting, you know, they'd be in there anytime. Oh, Eric, anytime you want anybody's leg broken or anything, just come to us, we'll look after it, no problem. They were very jolly, they were Cockneys, and I like playing Mr. Cheeky because he was the one, Michael's there and you're going, crucifixion? Yes, 1 cross on the left, line on the left, going, crucifixion? No, freedom for me.
Yeah.
They said I could go free and live on an island somewhere. Oh, well, jolly good, off you go. Now I'm only pulling your leg, it's crucifixion, really. So, it's that.
Well, these are questions that we've kind of covered. So I'm going to get to near the last one here. Oh, this is, I have to ask this, I think. I once read that supposedly a hotel owner, the one which Faulty Towers was based on, threw your suitcase out the window of his hotel because he thought there was a bomb in the suitcase?
Yes, and you have to remember this is like early. This is when we were filming Python, so it's like in the early '72, something like that. So it's pre-all bombing and terrorism, even in London. And but I had left my football gear in a little bag by the door, and he put it in the car park because he thought it was going to explode. And he had to leave the country and go off to Canada because John made him so funny about him. He was quite bonkers, you know. It was lovely.
Oh, well, this is a nice question. Sir, you are a worldly treasure. Thank you for all your contributions. My question is this: in a world where information is bombarded at infinite speed, where the negative is promoted over the good, where aspiring dictators are being handed the reins, how would you suggest we keep looking on the bright side of life? Because I'm fucking losing my shit.
Well, it's a tough question, and I think the answer is in your hands. It's your country, and you can do something about it, and you must, because we look up to America, and always have. Our generation was born under Hitler, and we were rescued by America, who came along and invaded the continent and got rid of fascism. So it's sad to see it being replaced in America. So I mean, you know, I think that we're looking at America now. I think we're saying, well, what are you going to do about this? And I think you two are also looking at going, what are we going to do? And either the institutions of the country survive and we'll deal with it, or we'll find them one by one subverted to this greater evil. But I am a believer in America. I really firmly believe you're going to kick the bastard out. That's what I believe.
And by the bastard, you mean Jared Kushner?
Genius. Jared Kushner.
Unbelievable
yes,
IQ.
Yeah.
Last question here. It's a very poignant question, and that is, what do you think of death?
Well, I'm in favor of it. Especially for the lot we just mentioned. Because it does clear people out, you know. It gets rid of the buggers, you know. They go. Well, not Cheney, obviously. But he must. How many artificial hearts has he got? You know, got more.
He's got to get well and go hunting.
Yeah. Oh, yes, duck hunting. So yes, but I think I used to want on my tombstone, "Say no more." But then I decided I changed it. I'd like on my tombstone, I'd like a second opinion. And then Billy Connolly told me that on his tombstone, he wanted it carved, but very small, in tiny handwriting. "Ouch, you're standing on my balls." So, yes, sir.
That's our last.
Let's finish with a song then, shall we?
I would love that.
Oh, excuse me. Let's hope it's still in tune. All right, let's see. Yeah, forgive me a second. Actually, this is bastard. It's the lights, I think. So somebody asked me, actually Colbert asked me last week, you know, what are you going to have played at your funeral? And so I said very simply this one. Sit on my face and tell me that you love me. I'll sit on your face and tell you I love you too. I long to hear you oralize when I'm between your thighs. You blow me away. Sit on my face and let my lips embrace you. I'll sit on your face and then I'll love you truly. Life can be fine if we both 69. If we sit on our faces in all sorts of places and play till we're blown away. Thank you. But yeah, I think we should just finish on this song though. Come on, you bastard. Can you buy them? They're in tune. All right. So yeah, this we should definitely. If you'll help me, we can finish with this. All right. This is the title of the book. Some things in life are bad. They can really make you mad. Other things just make you swear and curse. When you're chewing on life's gristle, don't grumble, give a whistle. And this'll help things turn out for the best. And always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the light side of life. If life seems jolly rotten, there's something you forgot. And that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing. When you're feeling in the dumps, forget about the trumps. Just purse your lips and whistle, that's the thing. And always look on the bright side of life. Death, sorry. Just before you draw your terminal breath. Life's a piece of shit when you look at it. Life's a laugh and death's a joke, it's true. You'll see it's all a show. Keep 'em laughing as you go. Just remember that the last laugh is on you. And always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. And always look on the bright side of... Thank you very much, Mr. Bob Saget. Good night. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.